Okay, gonna get back to doing a little bit more design, and this is gonna be, well, potentially we'll do a tutorial out of this. It's something that I've had on my mind that I've wanted to do for a while as a tutorial, and I've just never really sure I've quite found. Haven't really known where to start more than anything. So today I'm gonna talk about sculpting a little bit, and it's a huge topic. You'll notice we've got the Create tab where it's got objects, surfaces, water, etc., etc., etc. And in that you've got all the objects and all of that. Sculpting is all one. And firstly, stick to these two pretty much universally. The red brushes, I mean, you're only ever getting rid of stuff that's gone wrong. And I've never had to use one of these. I've used them a couple of times starting out a plot, and that's been about it. Landscape flatten and landscape raise are your bread and butter of design. They do everything for you. So what I wanted to do today was kind of look at a whole in its entirety and how I might go from, land that we've got to getting land that we want. And a lot of it comes down to feel rather than actually seeing what's on the page and going, oh, I go up, I don't know, 3 feet, 4 feet, whatever. Almost all of the time I am not looking at the numbers. I'm kind of looking at really what's happening underneath the brush. And I'm going to start with a brief explanation of what these are and why they're different, because once you start understanding what they're trying to do, you can get a bit more creative with them. Raise is going to keep all of the natural contours of the land as they are, but take everything up at the same kind of level. Flatten is going to make everything the same level. So you can see the difference the two brushes are. At 0 feet 0, I can click raise everywhere and it does nothing. But if I want to raise everything up 1 foot, well, everything within that circle has gone up 1 foot, 10 feet, 20 feet. But you can see that the general contours on the top have stayed exactly the same. Now what you'll notice is that this doesn't look particularly attractive because on the side, well, it's dragging it up really sharply. Now when we look at the shape we've got, you can work out that everything that is clear on the inside of the brush is being affected 100%. So that is going up the full 36 feet. And we then have it kind of tapering off through this blue fuzzy. So the stuff right at the very edge of the blue fuzzy, getting absolutely none of that, 36 feet. Stuff in the middle of the blue fuzzy around about 18 feet, etc., etc. So logically, if we change to this one, obviously a slightly diminished effect. It's still at the middle because you can see that the fuzzy bit's coming in a little bit more and a little bit more still. So this one, we get a point in the middle, going up 36 feet, and then everything kind of tapers off. These ones, ovals rather than circles, but the same concept applies. And really the concept, once you've got that of, well, the white shape on here, going to be 100%, fuzzy, everything else, once you really start getting that, you can do a lot with them. Now that in mind, I use very few of these brushes, but I use them a lot. I will use this one. I use this one quite a lot. And I'll talk through kind of what I do as I go with them. Very rarely use this one. This one's often only really just... No, I don't really use this one too much. It tends to be too hard on the edge and does too much. This one I think is a nice medium. I really use this one quite a lot if I want to bump up a bunker and it's kind of all sat down. I might go into advanced edit so that it's kind of... You're still getting that tapering transition, and then I might bump it up a little bit. And again, I don't do it by much, but it might be the odd foot here or there just to make it look a little bit better. And you can't, because it's tapering off at the edge, you can't really tell what I'm doing. It's just fixing a few things. This one I use all the time. This one actually is great for camber, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But with this one, if you bear in mind that the epicenter is going up quite a lot, but everything else is going up very gradually, you can make this one huge, and we can create a right to left, left to right even tilt to the fairway, without it looking like we're really distorting the land too much. But look at what it's doing to the fairway. So that's at 0 foot 0, and it's on raise, so nothing's changing. But if we just raise it up a little bit, well, we're creating a big camber, and we can kind of see the effects of the land. I think this would be point number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Really, kind of whatever you're doing, disregard the numbers. Look at what is happening underneath the brush. Look at it from different angles. Look at whether you like it. Don't think that one brush click will do everything. It won't. But look at what's happening underneath it. And even go under the brush so you can't see the blue bit. And that's even better because you can play around with the raise lower. I'm making this bigger and smaller. You can see the effects it's having. I might try to get it somewhere I like, and I might just click. I don't know. I might think, you know what, I kind of like that hill that it's creating. I don't, but I might do. Or I might start moving the brush over here and going, well, what's it look like if I do that? I mean, you can't do this every single time. I'm able to get underneath it because there's lower land here. And I wouldn't try to engineer this necessarily. It's just a happy accident when it happens. So yeah, that's that. However, your ultimate bread and butter brush is this one. If you cannot use this one even adequately, this needs to be your first port of call before planting, before waterfalls, before whole strategy, before anything. This is the brush that I will do 90% of my sculpting work with. For raise, for flatten, all of these sorts of things. Because, as you can see, it's all fuzzy, which means it's making gentle changes to the land, which means we can use it loads. And we can make multiple clicks, and we can just gently get the land to do what we want without any of these. Let's say we did the same thing with this one. Well, if I want to lower this down by 10 feet, well, you can see I'm getting a bowl in there because it's fuzzy on the edge, but it's taking everything in the middle down 10 feet. Let's just click and see what it does. Looks absolutely hideous. Whereas were we to do same 10 feet with this, yeah, I mean, you barely notice that I've hit the brush because it's actually not. This is another thing, because it's all fuzzy. None of it is going down the full 10 feet. In actual fact, this is probably going down about 6, 7 feet if it's at 10 because everything's fuzzy. Anyway, what else do we need to talk about? These ones I've covered. There are a couple of ones that are just good for landscape and big moves, and they're really aggressive brushes. You can see how they are at the edge, really sharp. They have their place, but they're quite specialist. So that'd be, this one's good for coastlines, this one's good for mountains and kind of rocky edges. This one some people have used. I'm not such a fan. It's got like just some really weird edges. I've never really got used to that one. This one actually I use quite a lot on this plot. Petty suggested it for creating hills. It does unfortunately create these little bobbles. So actually on this plot you see them up here, I believe. You can see this little bit of bobbling here where the land's kind of a bit more jagged. It doesn't matter because it's completely out of sight, but it creates some really nice rolling hills. And really just experiment with them. And then these two I use when creating plots because they create nice natural undulations. Just make them quite big for this one, and just I tend to at the very start raise by about 4 feet and spin it around. There's a different tutorial on that for plot creation. This one some people I've seen use a lot. I mean, it's slightly softer and fuzzier than this one, maybe. I don't know. I don't use that one much. That's not to say there's no reason to it. If I were raising the entire plot up, I'd probably try to use this one, but it doesn't actually fit all 4 corners at the same time, so it's stupid. But yeah, those are your main ones. So, what we're going to look at is, on this plot, we've done a lot of well, full disclosure, the plot was done first. I created the barranca in the middle. A lot of you will have seen this on stream already. And then it's finding the holes around it. But then, whilst we can find the holes in natural terrain, as we would do in real life, you'd be getting diggers and dump trucks, etc. And, well, in the old days, horse and cart and steam shovels. And you're shaping the land to be perfect for golf. At the moment, we've got roughly where we want a hole to be. Our job is to kind of massage that into shape and make it look like this hole really does fit the land. So, my first step will be to work out what kind of key features we want. I've already done this. I tend to go through all 18 holes and plan ideas first of all, and then come back to them later on, which is what we're doing now. We're doing a bit of a second pass. So, in terms of what do I like about this, natural features wise, we've got this little dip in the middle. Do we want to keep that? Do we want to run fairway through it? I mean, I'm undecided. It's 250 yards out. It's not really in play. I mean, could it be? The green's 40 down. I mean, we could maybe have a tee shot getting to there or a tee shot laying up to here. But if it's laying up to here, you've got 256 into a green downhill that's quite small and running away from you. Probably not going to do that. So the question remains, given that this is kind of a hazard-ish that's separating these 2 points, do we want it? Well, but then again, it does fit with the land quite nicely, so I'll probably soften this first of all. I don't want it to be as steep or as low as we can. So we're going to go into raise. I don't really go into flatten at the start. I find if you go into flatten early, you lose a lot of the contours that are there. And what we're going to do is we're going to raise it and try and get below the brush if we can, and just get it to somewhere where we think it looks about right. Now, one click takes us to there. Not the finished article, but it's better. And a lot of sculpting is really about trusting that the moves that you're making now will allow you to make moves further down the line. Do another click there, and you can see I'm trying to maintain this little bit of gradient towards the barranca. Reason being, everything in my eyes is going to tell me off the tee that my ball is going to go left to right. So we want to keep that when it hits the ground. And you know what? This might on its own be enough. We've got a little dip. So if you edge too close to that, maybe you're running into it. You can do the heroic carry and get down somewhere along here. I don't know. Haven't really worked that out yet. Or you can play out left for kind of like the sensible play, but you're taking on a bunker there. And then you can have a shot straight down towards the green. Hiya, Brad. We're doing a little bit of a tutorial on sculpting, and we'll see how it goes. So we've gotten that little bit sorted, I think. Yeah, I still think I'd like it. It's hard to tell how left to right that is. 10 feet is quite a lot. I wouldn't really. This is something you gain with experience in terms of going camber. What is a lot? What is not much? No, this isn't CZ contest at all. This is just a personal side project thing. Okay. So I think the first thing we do is try to make sure that sightline roughly works off the tee. Now, measure tool generally helps us, but if you get down, you can see what the problem is. We can't see over this hill here. And actually, that hill there is 7 feet down, but because of how far down everything else is going to be, we're going to have to work pretty hard with this. So 2 options. Do we raise the tee up? Do we lower the hill? Do we lower the front of the fairway? We're going to do a mixture of all of them. And basically, we want to get that, where there's not much there, and you can't really see, looking more like 4, which, if we go from the 4th tee down to here, is 61 feet worth of elevation, and you can see pretty much all the way. It's not quite perfect yet, it needs a little bit of work, but that's what we're aiming for. And it's pretty gradual and smooth. So, how do we do that? First thing I would do is not hit flatten for a while. You want to do big raises, keep some of the contours in place. We've identified the points that we need to come down. This kind of hill, and if you can go side on, that often helps. That hill was getting in our way, so we're taking that down. Are we going to raise the tee up? I'd rather avoid raising the tee up if I can, because we're already quite high up. But it's in a little bit of a weird gully, so I think we can feel justified in doing, I don't know, 5 feet we'll say. Yeah, Brad, ask if you've got any questions on anything as well, or indeed anyone else. Now, the front of the fairway is also blocking everything else, but we're going to want to consider how this looks from different holes. Because this does make, obviously it makes sense for the land because that's how the land is. And we created this whole plot, but it doesn't really make sense for golf yet. Excuse me. And in our ideal, the ideal, I guess, maxim for sightlines is you should be able to see everything off the tee. Yes. And no, there are times when you want to play with blindness, there are times when... And we're going to go down 104 feet. Elevation change is tricky to do. And tricky to do well, and even trickier to do incorporating strategy and making the elevation not be the strategy. So I'm going to do some really big moves, and you'll see me at the first of when I start making holes, I will make the brush really big because you've got to get the land roughly looking like you want it to. Now I've got an idea in my head that I want to see some hills on the left hand side feeding in. You can see this sightline's already looking a bit better. I want to see the land flowing from left to right, and I want to get a feel of that downhill. I want to be on that tee and see as much of the plot as you possibly can. But I also know that I've got this bit here, and I don't want the fairway to be like 20 feet lower than here, which we're kind of risking in any case. Now what we could do though is we could lower all of this. If we did that, how does that affect this hole? Well, some of that planting is going to come down, which I don't think is a bad thing. I think the other thing you gain, the better you get with sculpting, is you are far happier to try things out because you know you can eventually get it back. And again, not looking at the numbers at all, I'm kind of looking at the views off in the distance and seeing from here, and actually this was something that I saw Petty doing on his a little bit. Where do I want to be able to see off this tee? Do I want to see across to 1? Possibly. And just drawing little lines, and then you can clear out with planting. Do I want to see this green? That would be quite cool if we could get a little glimpse of that through the trees. Do we want to see something of 18? Now we've got one tree in the way there, but otherwise we're going to be able to see bits of 18. So maybe we'll mess around with that, or we'll move the tee to a slightly different angle and then we gain all of these things. Because that's an option as well. And actually, if we move the tee to here, what does that leave us? Probably encourages you to be a bit more aggressive because you're having to hit a bit further right. It's an option. Okay, actually I think we're going to do that. Wait one sec. Let's just work out how far back we are. 487. Cool, so a little bit about there. And we're going to clear our measure tools because I don't think I need them at this point in time. Oh no, I was doing a dreadful cart path, it didn't matter. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing. Our little sight lines, what do we want to see? This one might be a little bit more difficult now. You're going to have to go through quite a lot of trees to see that. What else do I want to see from this tee? Seeing 11 green would be good, but I'm not sure it will work with the land. Definitely to 18. To 10 would be amazing, but I don't think I'm going to be able to get that. Just, yeah, that hill is actually blocking a lot of things for us. And obviously we're going to want to be seeing down to the 17th green, which is the main one that's important. But I'm also going to want you to see all of this stuff as well. And we'll put other bits of eye candy in as we go. Is there anything else we'd want you to see? I mean, you're not really going to see a huge amount of 1. Slightly less so on this hole, but that's okay. So you can see we've got that little sight line there already. That one's, it'd be nice to see a bunker or something in there, but you know what, just seeing a fairway is good. This one, we're going to have to clear out a lot of trees. Might be able to give you a glimpse though. These are all auto-gen trees, I haven't planted any of these, so it doesn't matter. 18 is going to be very doable. In fact, you might already be able to see 18. Let's see what it looks like at this point in time. Okay, so we've already got a sightline to the green straight away. We've got a sightline to 18. That's good. We've got a bit of view over 10. Oh goodness, we are chugging suddenly. I feel like that's the game, that's not. Encoding overloaded. That doesn't sound good. Let's go back to edit course. It was working far better in the designer. Hopefully it's holding alright on stream. Okay, evidently we can't go into playtest mode much. But okay, what we saw was good. So I think some of those sightlines are going to look really good. Right, so the question is what next? And often I take a little while before I take the plunge and going into flatten. Because the problem with flatten is it makes everything the same level. We haven't really looked at flatten, actually, in this little mini tutorial so far. Now, flatten is basically going to do what it says on the tin. It's going to make everything flat. So if we were going to the hard circle brush, you'll see that everything inside is going to go dead tabletop flat. You have no break whatsoever. Great one for. So therefore, this is great for flattening tees, but not great for anything else. This one, I mean, also good for flattening tees. There's a little bit more coming off it. This one can be quite good for raising tees up 2 feet because you see a kind of natural slope off it. So on this one, because I've got rectangular tees, I'm using this. And let's say our tee is here. And I'll flatten up. Now the usual logic, conventional wisdom is don't flatten up. I think if you know what you're doing, flattening up is fine. And also worth bearing in mind, it's going to go to kind of the midpoint of all of this. So in actual fact, if we look at where the land is currently, flattening down might actually look like it's flattening up because the middle point of where the land is currently at the moment. So I think what it does is it kind of averages it out and flattens to that middle point plus or minus 3 inches or whatever you're doing. So in this case, looking like that, it's taking the back down, but it's made it generally look a bit higher, which can sometimes be a bit weird. Any others? Not really. This one I've found is brilliant as a brush for making dunes on flatten up. You can get some, I mean, if you just play around with the size of it and kind of where you're moving it and heights and things like that, flatten up works great for that. Same with soft fuzzy. Flatten up works brilliantly for creating dunes and things like that. Just combine a couple of clicks. Which probably takes us to the next bit. Okay, let's still do a little bit more work. I'm just trying to get the land to really make you feel that you are going left to right of this tee shot. And I don't mind about any of these big moves, because 5 feet is nothing. But I'm going to want you to feel like everything is pushing you into this barranca. And it's really important to do these big moves first, because if you don't and you start doing all of your little bits of fairway sculpting first of all, then you just lose it the moment you try to make it fit with the land. See, now that barranca is looking a little bit too high, but could just be because the planting's a bit high at the moment. So we're going to make a little move. It might seem like I'm doing things slightly out of order. At the moment, what I'm trying to work out is there's something when I zoom back to that tee, the barranca was way too stark in my face. And the question in my mind is it to do with the sculpting that this part of the fairway is too low and that part's too high, or is it to do with the planting being too high? I think it's this bit being too high and a little bit of this being too low and a little bit of the planting. Kind of a mixture of everything. Give me the tree. And if we lower this, we're going to have a dual benefit of it means that people can potentially carry it a bit more easily. It also means that we're going to get a slightly better sightline. This hole is very funky for the moment, but I think it'll be one where we can get away with it. See, now looking down at that, you're going to see the barranca, but it's not going to be too overt. So now we want to think, oh, whoops, didn't mean to do that. How do I want the fairway to roll on that side? Well, again, I'm going to want it to flow downhill. And I still want to give you that feeling of everything falls to your right. And you'll notice all of this has been fuzzy brush. I haven't done really anything else. I'm trying to make you think, even once you land it here, I want you kind of hedging your bets and going to here thinking it's going to move down here, because as we can see, it really is. Now that's probably going to be a bit too much, but we'll work it out. Now that we've done that, I kind of feel like this whole thing come up a little further. Still not hitting flatten yet though. A little bit more in here. I mean, also feel free to go wild with the land just in front of the tee. Like, not crazy, but I wouldn't think anything of just randomly putting 5 feet down clicks just in front of the tee to allow you to see to the start of the fairway. Okay. Now at this point, I'm feeling the left to right when I get down to here. Not really feeling it at the top of the fairway, so I might put a bit more of that camber in the way that we saw earlier. Starting to feel it. Now I'm going to go back to 11 because there's going to be some times where you're affecting other holes. Actually, I think I'm going to be able to hide this really well, because I want this side of the fairway and this land here to be a little bit lower. Now I was worried about it affecting 11, but the way the planting is, the way the view is, the way the lighting is, actually we're not really going to see it, so that's good news. So we can drop this down a little bit further. And there's this bit right here. It's also a bit high. And with a lot of this, it's just stuff that grabs your eye as you go. Keep swinging back to the tee, because there was a little mound just there that was dragging my eye away from what you want. You want people to be going and following your surfaces and looking all the way down to the green, because that's the way their eye naturally takes them. You don't want it being dragged away by the fact that there's a random high bit of sculpting somewhere. Okay, I think we might now be on to flatten. So, flattening out super steep fairways is a pain. It's really doable, but it's a pain. And you're likely going to have to go in and put a lot of the contours back in afterwards. Because at the moment, I've got two options. I can either basically raise all of this stuff out. Now there's an argument for saying that what I should have done would have been to flatten all of this first, and to get the elevation change working right, and then put in the side-to-side movement. I'm more kind of visual with it. I wanted to see how I roughly want the land to look first, and then I'll recreate it afterwards. So to get smooth downhill slopes or side hill slopes, you want to be doing this is some way you've got to trust that this will work. You're going to take the fuzzy brush, flatten, way bigger than the actual fairway, and we're just going to click at the top. And we're going to go down a little bit further. I mean, the further down you go down, the slightly steeper incline you're going to get. And click again. And again. And yeah, this is taking out a lot of the good work we've just done, but I'm pretty certain we can get that back. Because what this is doing, you may remember we talked about it averaging out basically. I've got to be quite careful here because I'm close to that green. So even this tiny little bit of flatten is still going to be affecting that green slightly. Actually, by this point, we're pretty much at flat, so I don't want to worry about those. And now we've got a flatter fairway, and presto, we've got a better sightline. However, you will notice we've lost a lot of that natural, nice left to right movement. So the question is, do we want to lower this bit, or do we want to raise the other bit? I think I want to do both. And there is absolutely no rule to doing this. It's just whatever your eyes see a little bit better. Yeah, a couple of feet one side, and a couple of feet the other side. Doesn't have to be perfect, just enough to give us an idea. Probably do a little bit more that side as well. Okay, and we're getting our camber back slowly. Now what we have done in all of that has been to lose some of the kind of definition of this barranca, so I'm going to have to redo that. But sadly that was inevitable. On the plus side, it means I get to show off this stuff again, which is good for tutorials. Here we do want a sharp edge, so we're going to take one of the sharp brushes and just dig with that a little bit. Really is a bit of a shame to lose that, but we're going to end up with a better hole for that, and it will save me. It will save me long in the long run. That will save me time, having done these big flatten moves. So at this point, it might be worth just checking our fairway. And yeah, that's pretty good. It's not perfectly flat. There are some things that I'm going to want to change, but we'll get it working. I wonder whether I want to raise this side up a little bit more as well. We're going to have to anyway with that bunker in the end. Because if we want, I'm still a little undecided on this bunker. If we are going to want that bunker in play, then the land behind it needs to be high, so it needs to be in a hill, and it means the stuff in front of it is going to need to go down because we've got to have a low side and a high side. And I'm probably going to redo the bunker shape anyway. So you can now see the bunker. To be honest, we can create a hill here. So all of this sculpting, by the way, is going to be all there just to justify that bunker. So creating a big hill there is because I don't want this hill housing the bunker to look like it's just been created to house a bunker. So we're going to create this whole hill coming in large part just to make that bunker make sense. Do ask questions. Anyway, if anyone's in chat and has questions on any of this, please do ask, because it's, yeah, a lot of it really is though just reacting to what's in front of you. I hate that bunker shape. I went way too narrow on that. In fact, I'm not sure I want a bunker. If we didn't, but what I do like is having a landing zone here. Right, there's got to be some sort of an option so that one of your approaches could be from there to get maybe one of those pins, or I don't know, give yourself a better angle in. Avoid these two bunkers. I like the idea of giving someone a choice of, you know what, off a long par 4, admittedly massively downhill, but I'm comfortable hitting, well, maybe not even 2 wood, maybe 3 iron, 1 iron down to here, and then having mid iron, long iron in. Quite like that. And if that were the case, I don't want to be blocking that with a hill. So we're now going to take that hill out because having changed all of that, I don't like it anymore. So again, this one I've just gone on to flatten, and we're going to just take it down. It's still there. Maybe raise in this case. And some of this stuff I can't really explain. I am doing it because in my head it makes sense. Right. Question is then going to be, why would the fairway curve around this way? I've got an option. So we could have an option of dragging extra fairway around here and all the way down, and putting in a fairway bunker around about here. It would fit the course quite nicely. I'd probably put a second one in around about here because this is stylistic, but one of the things I've been trying to do is draw your eye with bunkers. So this one goes this way, then this way, and it draws a further line down to here. And a good example might be this hole. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, all kind of giving you that diagonal feel, which mirrors the slope there, and the same with these two. And I've quite liked that look. So that's been the previous hole. If you then see it again slightly mirrored here, that could be quite good. I didn't really like this fairway shape anyway, it didn't make much sense. But I think it would give you something to think about. Try to avoid sculpting slopes, getting different heights to match your situations. Elevation change is tricky. I assume that's what we're referring to, just like massively uphill or downhill holes. And actually, it's one of those things where, yeah, it is. It's one of those things where the more you work the land, the harder it gets. It's far better to do a couple of judicious big moves at the start, and it will solve you a lot. Are we starting to buffer a bit more? It still says encoding overloaded. I don't really understand why. That's irritating. Gone to amber. 1 second. Output. Oh no, we're back to green. I don't know. I don't know what's going on. Side hills can be really tough. I'd say side hills are the harder ones because I think it's generally easier to make the land go uphill or downhill, and show that it's going uphill or downhill. Of course, it cut out. Start with large moves. Yeah, I mean, I've hopefully this has been all recording and not kind of dying somewhere in the background. But it will be going up to YouTube because I think this one's worked out okay so far. Admittedly, we've obviously gotten a little bit distracted and gone into some strategy stuff, but yeah, we're adapting a hole based on it making sense, which I think is always a good thing to include. Not delete path, Ben, idiot. It's been okay for you, cool. Yeah, I mean, it's been doing some weird encoding issues on my end, but hopefully that won't be too bad. Yeah, in that case, what I tend to suggest is you do, so what I've done with this one has been to go the flattens from high to low. Oh yeah, I never mentioned that. Your big flattens, if you're going, I'll always try to move downhill. For some reason it squashes the land downhill better than it pushes it uphill. It kind of, imagine if you're smoothing out a tablecloth, I guess, or something like that. If you're going to push it, it'll kind of end up wrinkled at the end. Maybe it's to do with that, I don't know. Either way, flattening downhill works better. But once you've done that, I would then suggest you go to, this brush is great for camber or side hills, and just put it in, like go off to one side. This is a trick that Eric taught me way back when, I think he was doing his CC course last year. And that can put in a little bit of camber for you. You can make it a bit more aggressive than you think as well. Oh, this one, I will always just single clicks really. I don't want those. Didn't want the second one. If I was flattening going downhill, it would be which one? Okay, I know what you mean. Alright, I'm going to save quickly, just because I'll leap back out and in. Seeing as you're here, if I was going downhill and kind of sorting out this and making it perfectly flat all the way downhill, or like one continuous slope, we'd be going to this brush, one click, and then kind of go, so it's about, I'd say, we had it here, in my mind I'm going so that we're about halfway along again. So like the edge of the brush is now going to end up there, or like the edge of the middle bit. So you can see where it kind of goes from deep blue into pale blue. I kind of use that as a reference. So we're going to go there, then there, then there, then there. And we'll click once again. And once again. And so on and so on and so on. And what you're really doing, you'll notice that as we do this, the slope is kind of getting a little more severe. But it's kind of reaching it, it's slowly flattening out as we go further down. And now I think after 2 times of doing this, we've got a perfectly nice flat downhill hole, and we've made it really boring, I think. Now, the page 1 top right, what's the difference between, so this is Adam's question, I think. What's the difference between this one and this one? The answer is the middle bit, obviously. In this bit, if it's fuzzy, then it's not going up to 100%. So if we're on this on raise, higher Griffin. So this on raise, if I go to 10%, like you can see where, let me just get it so it's at the right sort of level. There we go. So we can see the blue brush where the brush is kind of saying it should be, and then the actual effect. So because it's fuzzy, it's not having 100% of the effect, which is why it's great for flattening, because it doesn't ever do anything too harshly. If we're going to go to same brush, same height, different brush, what we can see with this one, the middle of it does go higher. What that does mean is you get more of a contour. Exactly as Grovey is saying. It's great for large side slopes because, as you can see, it's created more of one. So if I was creating camber, do I want to be going for that brush or do I want to be going for this one? Well, both of them are doable. I prefer this one. So if I was chucking a camber on, we might be going to the side of this hill and we might be lowering off the side of the fairway, and that's using this camber. Well, you do, but we're not flattening, so you won't really notice. But I mean, let's look. So at the moment we're 5 down. I mean, yes you do, but it's not like too obvious. Now, could we do the same with this one? Yep. I mean, difference is minimal. Both of them work. What I would say is, though, there's more with this one. Compare the middle, like the effect on the middle versus the effect on the outside. There's not much difference, so it's not creating as much of a difference, therefore as much camber. There's a lot more difference between here and there, so therefore, yeah, use it for the side of the brush. However, it is very good for creating dunes as well. I've used it quite a lot for that. It's also, and this is a Reeb trick, it is really good for creating some cliff edges. So if you take it to like quite small, down about a foot, and just spam click, and it just starts poking little holes in the land. It works better on coastline, really. We can get a bit more aggressive. But you start seeing it kind of tears up the land really nicely. And that's quite a nice little trick as well. Yeah, we're going to exit because I didn't really want any of that saving. But we'll come back. So, we're on 17. Now, next question I've just decided I've got is, if we're going to put a fairway bunker here, which side is preferable? 29, 20. So this one's going to push you into going down to there. I think we need to move these a little bit. Not much, but something like there. Now that, I think, will work really nicely. So you've got these two bunkers, which are then going to mirror these two. You've got more of a bailout this side, which actually gives you a better angle, but you're going to run out of fairway potentially if you go too far that way. With this one, you're going to have to massively shoot the edge of the canyon and risk going off the fairway if you're going to want to sneak past all of this. Yeah, pretty happy with how that's going to go. Now, sculpting wise, what does that mean? Now that before, you might remember we were looking at creating an entire hill to house one bunker, and we were kind of sculpting all of this to do that. I probably will still bring a hill in here anyway. I think it looks quite nice, so let's just do that now. If we're creating a hill, I mean, you can do this in one or two ways. Actually, flatten can work quite nicely for creating hills. The problem is we're already on the side of a hill, so I don't want to make everything too flat. Sorry, I know I zoom around. I need to slow down a little bit with this. So again, we're only really focused on what can you see off the tee, and then what can you see off every tee. So I made that one click. We might go to raise again. Did I just move a filled spline? No, I didn't. I moved the two bunkers within it. So I selected those, and then went move. And I find this great for testing holes before you start, because once I've actually shaped these bunkers and like made them pretty, so let's say these ones, if I now start trying to move this, because it's such a fiddly shape, it's going to work a little less well, particularly if you see as I start rotating it, the shapes all move at different ratios. So if I spin it around to there, it doesn't quite look as good. But when I'm playtesting, I basically use blob surfaces like this. You can't move splines, unfortunately. You can do just simple move points. But I would almost always suggest having your splines as in your mind relatively temporary early on, and then what I'll start doing is doing measure tools and seeing how it would all work. So like I've obviously done a really rough job of doing this spline and this one to an extent, just to try to work out roughly where I want my surfaces. The second pass will be trying to eventually get everything looking neat and, I don't know, make sense. Do we want to play away from this barranca a little bit more? Something like that, maybe. In terms of just while we're looking at this, I'm quite a fan of having gently curving fairways. See, this now worries me that it's going to be too linear. Yeah, let's just get rid of all these. Maybe this is fine. Okay, so what do we need to do now? Probably need to start working on the tee and the sideline and things like that. Now I could just have the tee perched right in here and go one flatten and done. But it doesn't, you can see it's going to drag the land behind it. We want this to all feel like the whole plot makes sense. So we're going to get a soft fuzzy again, and we're just going to one click there. And we're going to do a couple more. What I am seeing though already in here that I'm quite liking is the way that you've got a hill coming in here and a hill coming in here at slightly different distances. And that's completely unintentional. I haven't seen that while I'm starting, but I'm now going to make something of it. So we'll do that one little flatten, but I'm going to make this mound come in a little bit more. Yeah, measure tools are great, just because it's not, I mean, more for me for sketching ideas than actually measuring stuff. I do a lot of measuring stuff anyway, but a lot of that is by eye. Now I'm doing this, I'm feeling less sure on it. Let's just get this how we want. So that trick we did with, I don't really like the fact there's a valley. So we're just going to do a couple of little flattens around here. Lost something in the last few moves. So we're just going to undo a load. If you're on PS4 or Xbox, sorry, you can't really do this so well. PS4 and Xbox unfortunately only have 2 undo clicks, whereas, I mean, you don't get unlimited on PC, but you get a lot more. I think the problem that's happened is our flatten actually took this down. Is it 10? It's not kind of enough. I'd also love a redo button, but we're not getting that. Okay, I'm going to pop a T down just so I've got an idea of... I'll try to do this relatively early as well, just to have an idea of where I need to fill the space. No, it's not even close to unlimited, sadly. And we're going to have another T. Where would look good? Probably about here. Hi Jason, how are you? Long time no see. So I might draw the tutorial bit to an end and just go into kind of a normal design stream. I hope it's been helpful and given a few ideas on sculpting. I wouldn't say we've covered everything, far from it. I haven't looked at greens, but I've done that in a different tutorial. I haven't looked at bunkers, but it's a different one. But I think we've kind of covered major parts of how to make a hole fit its land, and kind of the whys of how you do it. In terms of this hole, what would I still be looking to do? I know these bunkers are going to have to face the T, which means they're going to have a high side and a low side. In order to face the T, the high side needs to be here, which makes sense with the plot. The land is roughly flowing this way. So this side of the fairway is going to need to be a little bit higher than this one. We're going to raise this up a little bit and lower this one down a bit. I'm then going to have to deal with these bits and work out the whole green and how I want that to go. Probably going to be a little bit of a hill here. Oh, that bunker there is definitely nothing. That's one that I might just copy and paste in there. Yeah, PS4 I always thought was 2. What am I still not happy with? I'd love to feel that this land was throwing you a bit more this way, even though it's doing it loads. I think I need to play with the sculpting just off here a little bit more. Because actually, it is going quite hard left to right. It just doesn't look like it for some reason. I don't know why. Really is. Problem for another day. But I think the view's kind of sorting itself. So yeah, I'm going to cut this part of the stream and the recording bit. I'll pop this up to YouTube. There's a couple of other tutorials and things I've done. But for those of you who have stuck around for the tutorial part of the screen, thank you. I'm now going to just kind of carry on Twitch. I'll just reload the stream for that. But yeah, see you later and hope you enjoyed.